Hey friends, this is Brady here with Carrot. This month is team building month. So I thought what better than to give people a podcast, a video on how to build their teams. So we had our summit last week, which was a huge success, had hundreds of people on live. It was amazing. So thank you to everybody who showed up. It was great to hang out with you all. But one of our really popular sessions was how to build a team for your real estate investing business with Ryan Dossey and Jason Lewis. And so what we did is we took that session, which is no longer available. We stopped selling the recordings for the summit since last week, but I'm giving it to you for free on the podcast. And so this episode is really special because Jason has scaled a huge wholesaling investing business. And Ryan Dossey has also scaled his own investing business, and they've both done it in different ways. So Trevor, Ryan, and Jason all walk through exactly the hires you would need to make for what stage of the business you're at. So if you're looking to build a small team or a big team that can do deals nationally, it's different hires. If you're making less than 300,000 or 300,000 to $1 million or $1 to $3 million in revenue a year, it's different hires for different reasons. So they walk through the different scenarios, tell you what need to hire and how, and share their experiences with VAs, so you can save yourself some of the headache on making the wrong hires and doing the wrong things. So it's a really special episode, and I hope you guys really enjoy this breakout session from our summit. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Brady@carrot.com, and enjoy this episode. And we will see you all next week.
So we've got y'all about 40 minutes, and we're just going to talk about really how to structure a team and how to scale that team in an investing business. And I've got two amazing individuals. I'll introduce them to you guys here in a second. But one of the things I talked about at the start of one of the things I talked about at the start of the summit, we brought up the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula. And the first thing you need to do is have some level of a vision forward, right? It's pretty easy when you're getting started because it's usually to run away from something you don't like, right? It's like, I don't like the job. I don't like the income ceiling. I don't like that people say I can't do something. So that's really easy motivation and fuel to run away from something. But then once you start to build a business and you're getting some deals done, you get consistent profits happening, then all of a sudden you get really busy, right? You get really busy and go, I'm making some money now. And possibly I'm that motivation back here, maybe I'm not even motivated by that anymore because I'm away from that income issue. But now I don't have any time. I don't have any time to enjoy my business. I don't have any time to enjoy this money. I'm making money, but no time to enjoy it. And you just feel like you get distracted, you get bored, you get stressed out. Any and all of those types of things can manifest. And the next part of the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula, like we've talked about, is now buying back your energy and time. And how do we do that? Well, we do it with a team. I can tell you from my perspective, and I'm going to introduce Ryan Dossey and Jason Lewis here in a second. And guys, pop in the comments box right now in the comments box. Let us know you're here. We see the numbers, but I'd love to see some energy and some people pop in, who you are, where you're calling in from, why you're here on the team building breakout session. But the one thing for me was I kind of hit a crossroads at one point in my business where I was trying to run everything solo with just a couple VAs here and there, right? And what happened was I routinely became the massive bottleneck, and I could never go on the month-long vacation. The business stopped growing after a certain point because it maxed out what I could possibly do. And I even started to resent my business. Because I had this limiting belief that I could not build a team, or I did not want to build a team, because team equaled pain in the butt and team equaled less freedom. And so I want to break you guys of that limiting belief today. When you do it right, having the right team equals more freedom. Okay. I was talking with a friend the other day, and he's like, dude, you've got 60 employees. That sounds like a nightmare. I said, it would have sounded like a nightmare 7-8 years ago for me too. But I can tell you, when you have the right people, it actually unlocks you to make a greater impact. So I'm going to introduce you guys, starting at the top. Ryan Dossey, longtime Carrot member, amazing investors, a great mastermind as well. He works with a lot of investors, Ballpoint Marketing, just an amazing businessman with multiple different types of companies. Ryan, why don't you introduce who you are, what you do in your businesses, and maybe the brief, 3-4 minute kind of journey on how you got here. We'll do the same with Jason after that. And then what I want to do is, if you guys are cool with it, I'm going to ask you guys questions. If you can think back to that investing business, how it got started, I'm going to whip up my iPad. I'm going to start drawing org charts. at each level, like 300,000 to $1 million to 3 to 10. We'll kind of work on those together, and let's come up with some chicken scratch on what an org chart might look like over the stages. But Ryan, who are you, man? What do you do? And what's the brief?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I think I started on Carrot back in 2014.
Yeah, that's when we were getting started. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's records, but I'm at like 2,900 leads through my Carrot site at this point. So big fan. Hard to quantify like dollars and cents what that's actually made, but big fan there. So I currently live in Florida, kind of different than like most entrepreneurs in that I've followed my wife around. She's a Navy psychologist, so I've built the teams and used the freedom to support her career, not like necessarily jet setting all the time. I got started in real estate back in 2014, had a job that I hated. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like a lot of us. Got me really excited, but I didn't know what to do with that info, right? Like grew up middle class, cool that there's like this new, better way to use money. What do I do? I stumbled on Bigger Pockets, and then like a lot of people, I had no money, so wholesaling was the answer. My first deal, we did like 2,500 pieces of mail, got a property under contract, wholesaled it, ended up netting after paying back our marketing right at about $10,000. At the time, I was only making $23K a year, and I was like, I'm looking at a check for 6 months of my life. That was realistically a couple hours of my time, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm about this. So I struggled for a couple years. 2016, I went full time in the business. Didn't do very well. I did 6 deals, barely fed myself. I think my average cost to get a deal was $3,000. My average profit was 3. Do the math, right? 2017 though, stuff went fun. Stuff got a lot really more fun. I ended up doing 74 off-market deals between 2018, 19. We ended up buying around like 150 doors that we've since parted with. Now I'm active in Indianapolis, Pensacola, Florida, Baton Rouge, Cape Coral, Florida, and Pennsylvania, all from Florida. So yeah, that's kind of my, start, if you will.
That ought to be really cool to dive into because you're in multiple markets. So we'll kind of talk about that team for sure. Over to you, Jason. So introduce yourself. Who are you? Kind of what does your business look like? But then that brief journey on up so people can have the context. And then we're just going to rip apart what an org chart looks like, the first hires, the next hires, the whole thing.
Sounds good. I'll start with my Carrot plug. Been a Carrot customer since, I started out on my own. I think it's been about 6 years. And just in June was 3 SEO deals from Carrot, a 40, a 15, and a 30. So that was just in June. So
there you go.
I'm a user. I'm a believer. So
almost 100K a month. I love it, man. Good.
Yeah. So I started, I got a safe bachelor's degree, realized I hated it. This was 2012, right at the bottom, like market was absolutely at the bottom, disaster. Yep. Found a real estate investor to work for. He didn't want to hire me, so I worked for free till I was worth something. Then he eventually paid me that. And then went from being the guy getting the mail and lunch for everybody and everything else up to the point of COO. So first org chart in that company was started as we were doing 12 homes a year. I left at pushing 200 flips a year in an actual like flip organization. And I was the COO there. So 2012 to 2017 was there. Then 2017 to today, Utah company, left there, started as a one-man show, and have now built that company out to COO, acquisition managers, everybody in there. And I now have Investor Machine, which I started 4 years ago, that I sit in the COO seat in, built that all the way up to 80 people. And that's where most of my time is. So in terms of like the Utah company, I could do a 3-month trip on that company and it would continue to run and thrive. And we average about 3 million a year in revenue in that company across about 150 wholesales, mostly some flips, rentals, etc.
Dude, so one thing that's really cool with both of you guys, I want everyone to take notice of this, is both of them built up a real estate business, was able to build a team, which then allowed them to have more time and freedom to go build another business too. And so I know you guys have multiple companies, and the awesome thing is, guys, once you, number one, adopt this mindset of how to build a business and start to step out of the roles, you replace yourself in those roles with other people, then you can start to replicate that across more companies. Now, it does become a little more complicated as you get multiple ones, because then there's another setup there. But this skill set's going to serve you guys so much. So you right now, Jason, about $3 million a year. What's that real estate team? How many people are on that real estate team? And are you guys just in Utah, or are you guys outside of Utah right now?
So I am not as cool as Ryan. I am just Utah.
Okay, cool.
Investor Machine. Investor Machine is most of the rest of the nation, but I am just focused in on the one. So I have COO, 2 acquisition managers. I do it a little different than a lot of people. I have what's called relationship managers, which is people who just network both to get my deal, to get new deals, as well as to disposition deals. Okay. So they kind of sit in a blended acquisition and disposition role. Then a transaction coordinator with an assistant. I have 3 lead managers, office manager, and then group of virtual assistants who run things behind the scenes, project manager. And I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but I think that's everybody.
Okay. I like it. So you've got a good handful of staff. Ryan, if you don't mind sharing, you don't have to share these. Where are you guys revenue wise? Because I always like to look at things break at 3s and 10s, 100,000, 300,000, $1 million, 3 million, 10 million, and a different need is needed at each level. Where are you guys right now? And then we'll be able to peg org charts along the way.
Yeah. So I think Jason's it's definitely larger than us in any one market. Yep. I think what's interesting with mine is, like, I've got a solopreneur guy that I've partnered with. I have a guy that it's like a team of 3. And then our team in Indianapolis, we have office admin, my business partner there. That's basically like our COO there, acquisitions manager, and an ISA. I don't have total annual revenue numbers off the top of my head. Our Baton Rouge market did 12 deals over the last 4 to 6 weeks. Yep. That was north of 100K net. Just got from Indy this morning. We've got 344 in pending profit. So that's, over the course of a couple months worth of work. Yep. And then our solopreneur guy, we actually just launched a brand new market with him down in Naples, Cape Coral. So he's just starting out.
I like it. Cool. So we're talking. I'm gonna share my iPad now, and we're just gonna start drawing a little bit, because I know for me, I really resonate with what should the darn team look like, and what are the roles that we have in there. So when you were kind of rattling yours off, Jason, I started putting some of them here. We'll organize them as we go. And of course, the cool thing you guys are gonna see is Jason's gonna tackle it a different way than Ryan's gonna tackle it, and that's fine. And it really just depends on what y'all are looking for and the skill sets you as the founder have. Because if you're an operational focused founder and you'd rather be behind the scenes, the org chart's going to look a little bit different. If you're a sales focused founder, you want to be out front doing deals and talking deals, great. If you want to completely step out of the org chart, it's going to look a little bit different. So if we were to look at this, I'm just going to start it off. I'm going to put CEO, even though technically there's no CEO at a $300,000 a year business. It's the person who owns the darn company with an inflated title. But what does a $300,000 or $500,000 a year flipping wholesaling business look like org chart wise in your guys' eyes?
So for me, when I was at that level, it really was pretty lean. Yep. So I had me, and I had a VA that did a lot of our data scraping management. I mean, true Upwork hire, right? $6 an hour. We had an acquisitions manager, and then we also at that point would have been using Call Porter. So kind of had the inbound call bit outsourced.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And that's actually such a good distinction, because I would highly suggest in that 300,000 to $1 million range. I mean, the closer you get to $1 million, it might change, but that you outsource a lot of those types of things that you don't need to bring in-house, right? Like with Jason's company, or both of you guys actually, because you guys both have companies that people outsource tasks to, direct mail and things like that. for sure, you guys should be outsourcing those things that are not your core competency, and don't hire them in. Like, you don't need a director of marketing sub 1 million. You need to have a marketing plan that you make probably as the CEO. And then you need to go find people to go execute that plan. And then, like you were talking, Ryan, you're going to have someone doing this work that was work you probably did. You start doing that work yourself? Were you scraping?
Yep.
Yeah,
that was my first. That was my first. Like, okay, there's only so many hours in a day.
Yep.
My wife's getting upset that I'm working all the time. Like, something's got to give. And it was like, what's the repetitive stuff that doesn't really require a ton of decision making? Which for me back then was things like data scraping, some of the free methods, right? Hitting up Craigslist for rents and seeing if they'd sell, doing the same thing on Zillow, keeping an eye on Facebook Marketplace, like kind of that, hey, just bat signal me here if somebody expresses interests kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Helping with some stuff in the CRM, that kind of stuff. So that was the first one, was like, okay, I need some lift here.
One thing to kind of look at this, guys, and I want to bounce over to you, Jason, kind of see what yours looked like around that time, and we'll make some recommendations on here. Is I love this tool called the drip matrix. Everybody pop in the comments box if you can see the screen right now, if you can see the red, yellow, and green. And the drip matrix, you start with the things that you need to delegate. And basically it's the things that drain your energy. You don't like them. And they're the things that really aren't like creating the revenue for your business. They might enable revenue in the business, like data scraping, but they're not out there creating it, right? It's closing the deals and the sales and selling the properties. So you start with that. So that in that case for Ryan was those things he mentioned: data scraping. There's the Facebook Marketplace stuff, and he created a process and then brought in a VA to do that work. Okay, then he was able to go up here to say, well, what are the things that make us money that also drain my energy? We're going to talk about when and where those types of activities came in. But Jason, at that 300,000 to $1 million, I know it was a while ago for both of you guys, but what did that team look like approximately in that range in those early days?
Are we talking 300 or $1 million?
Yeah, it is different. So let's say more of the 300,000 to 500,000, and maybe mention how it gets different close to $1 million.
Great. All right. So at that phase, you had me. I went through a very similar experience with virtual assistants. For me, the one that broke me was I wanted to get the tax delinquent list from Salt Lake County, and I went through, and it was one massive, it was 3,000 records. It was a PDF that was like written in that needed to be converted to a spreadsheet, right? And I was like, I'm not doing that. And then I think I'd heard on a podcast somewhere about VAs. So my first hire was also an overseas VA that turned out to be an absolute game changer for me. Now, between the two companies, I probably got, and the Utah company still probably only has 3 or 4 VAs, but Investor Machine is like 80 virtual assistants doing the manual repetitive work, going directly to the county for other people and scraping and things like that. So that was definitely my first hire. And then I didn't get an acquisition manager. I was probably a little late to the game on acquisition manager. I would guess I was somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million before I added an acquisition manager. I sat in that role up until that point.
Cool.
I had a couple of cold callers at that point, because early on, my first 2 marketing channels were direct mail and cold calling. And then the third one that I added in after was the website with PPC SEO with Carrot, etc. And then the other would be a lead manager. So I actually used Call Porter as well. But I used it where my in-house lead manager would answer the call initially. And if they missed the call, then it would be forwarded to Call Porter as the backup. Of all of the call centers out there, Call Porter is the only one that I would trust to answer all of the inbound calls. But I use them as a backup.
Yep.
So,
thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
What's that?
I said, thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, you guys are Call Porter is by far the most specialized in our industry. And the only way you're going to get someone on the phone that has a clue of what they're talking about that doesn't work in your in-house office is Call Porter. Otherwise, you're getting somebody that has no clue, and like, you best just take the name and call back, because if they talk to them for more than you're gonna find out they're an idiot. The one thing that's probably different for me than a lot of other people, I hired a more qualified lead manager earlier on than a lot of people would. As much as I love VAs, I did not hire a overseas virtual assistant lead manager. I think about the bench, right?
Yep.
So I hired a lead manager that could eventually be my acquisition manager. And that's what wound up happening for me as I grew, is the person that was with me, training with me, started as a cold caller, moved to a lead manager, and then eventually became an acquisition manager. Because the problem is, when you're a brand new tiny company in an industry that people already don't have a lot of respect for, you're trying to go bring in an acquisition manager at the level of someone there. It's really tough to do it. I've found it's much easier to get a young, hungry, good at sales college kid, start him as a cold caller lead manager, train him, build him up, and then eventually promote that person to be your first acquisition manager. And I think if you hire all overseas early on, especially in the sales roles, you're losing your bench.
Nope, that's good, man. So the beauty that you guys are seeing here is there's multiple ways to tackle this based on what you want and what your skill sets are, right? So I'm going to recite this a little bit, and I'm running on the fly with this, guys. We'll see if it works. Like I said, I think it's kind of doing something here. So if you guys are getting some value out of it, pop it through the comments box or let me know.
I get asked this question all the time. I mean, it was only, I think, 2 weeks ago that somebody called saying, hey, who do I hire and what do I build at different points? I think your topic is spot on, because this is one of the most common questions I get, is at each phase, when do I hire?
I like it. So you've got the CEO. Both of you guys had some sort of a VA, EA to do the rando stuff, right? So let's lock that in as cool. That's something both of you guys had at that. And both of you guys obviously were the leader of the company at that point. A difference that each one of you had around this stage, the 300,000 to 500,000, let's say, is the lead manager versus account or versus acquisition manager. And do you guys feel that's kind of more of a preference and skill set thing possibly? Or
so I would actually adjust my answer similar to Jason's.
Okay.
My acquisitions manager didn't start out of like, yo, just go close deals for me, bro. It was like, hey, there's going to be just some random stuff I need help with. Like, go grab pictures of 123 Main Street, go make sure the contractor's here, with the intention of that person evolving more into an AM, which they did.
Yeah. There's a couple of roles that can break you. And I remember in my early days, me and a bunch of, I will call them peers, friends in the industry, all kind of started around the same time. And we were all growing up. Actually, I met a lot of them through Brent Daniels, who you had on earlier, his TTP program. We made, friends with a bunch of people there, and we were all kind of going up at the same time. And I did watch some friends like get wrecked and have to start over doing the acquisition manager hire wrong. Like you blow that. There's a few hires. If you blow it at COO and if you blow it at acquisition manager, those two hires can do your business some significant harm. So when you do those hires, make sure you're watching pretty close.
Dude, yeah, I would agree. Like in CCF, the number one mistake I see that people we consult with do is they hire an acquisitions manager and think like, oh, cool, I'm out of the business now. When really they should be hiring like a lead manager, like an inside sales agent. So I think people almost try to delegate too quickly and then not manage or oversee that person. And I've watched that really bite some people.
Dude, one thing that I've found, I love that, guys. There's two kind of philosophies, y'all, when you're building a team. One philosophy is I want to start a company and I don't want to run any of it from day one. That's one philosophy, right? So that's maybe your guys' second company or third company, whatever it is. You're going to go, I've got an idea.
That may be the next one. I haven't pulled that off yet.
Yeah, well, you're not running the first one though, so you're able to pull out of that one, right? But let's say you're doing what you're doing now with Investor Machine. You're going to go, I'm going to go start a wholesaling company. Then oftentimes you go, if I'm not going to run it from day one, I'm going to hire an operator. And usually that operator in the early days needs to be a revenue driven operator. People make a mistake of hiring an operator that's the process person, all this. It's like sub $1 million, maybe even 3. You need someone who knows how to drive revenue and be organized and be an operator with it. The other philosophy, which most people on this call will do, and all of us did, is we're going to be working in the company just like this org chart shows. And then we're going to build up the team and then we're going to eventually move out of it. And like you guys are saying, you don't want to move from, okay, I'm the CEO. Now I'm going to go immediately hire a COO, or I'm going to go immediately hire an acquisition manager. We're going to start at the lowest value, lowest leverage tasks, get those off of my lap first for lower costs, because it's going to be much more expensive to go hire a high level person. And if you don't know how to do that stuff, or you then need to hire someone who's coming in with a playbook. And oftentimes those people don't come in with a playbook, and you don't know how to hold them accountable. So I love what you guys mentioned there. So we're going to start with the CEO. You're going to start the first hire is what we suggest is getting some sort of admin in place. Like you guys mentioned, it could be a VA, could be an EA to help just take all the rando stuff off of your lap. Then you get a lead manager in there, could be the cold caller, but it sounds like they're just doing a lot of different things. They're kind of picking up all that more busy work that's required to maybe do the cold calling or manage the leads that are coming in and things like that. And with the aim potentially to see if they can grow into an acquisitions manager. At this point,
can I add one thing?
100%, dude. Yep.
For me personally, this phase, when we were pushing $1 million, I had a couple of cold callers. I had the virtual assistant keeping the behind the scenes running, and I was just meeting with sellers, solving their problems, and then going to I was the project manager too, going to properties. I was talking to friends, moving the deals on the back end, and everything else. Is one of the happiest times I've been in my entire career.
Yeah.
I've moved 100 steps past this, but if you're in this phase, it's not all bad. I have a lot more freedom now than I had then, but in terms of like passion and enjoying and loving what I did in my day to day, I don't know that I've ever actually been higher than I was here in this exact phase right here. So, closer over more, right? I've pursued a lot of more. Now that I've really successfully gotten a whole bunch more, I start to think more now in terms of getting closer to the goal rather than just more. Don't always wish this phase away, because I don't know that I was ever happier than I was in this phase, day to day, meeting with people, solving problems, seeing progress on the flips, small niche team that I was managing, etc.
Dude, this is good. Let's spend a couple minutes on this, because I think this will be valuable for everybody watching this and for us too. It's kind of going back up to the drip matrix. This stuff down here is the stuff we don't like and isn't really driving the business forward, but it's got to get done, right? So that's that admin, that's that VA, that's that EA, the stuff's got to get done. Up here is the replacement part of the quadrant, where it drains our energy. We don't love it, but it makes money, right? So some people don't love sales, but they got to do the sales. They immediately try to replace themselves, which is fine. And then you've got production, which gives you energy and makes you money. So I want to toss this question to you, Jason. So when you were in this phase here in those early days, let's say the 300,000 to 500 or so, plus, what was it, do you think, that made it so it was one of the happiest times? Were you in your production mode a lot? Do you love those things?
Yeah, I loved being out and about, right? You're not just sitting staring at a computer every day. You're out looking at projects. You're interacting with other people. You're solving problems. You're feeling like you're doing good in the world. A seller comes with a big set of issues. You're solving those problems and everything else. I loved it.
Yep. Cool.
Now, I couldn't take a week off without company revenue going to zero at that point. But in terms of the day to day, it was awesome.
Cool. So it's reliant on you. And at this point too, were you working overtime at this point? You're jamming 40+ hour weeks.
So that's going to be another interesting part about me. I have been able to do all of this on about 40-hour weeks. Cool. At no point in this whole thing did I become the guy. I mean, I started my business. So when I left the other company and started my business was 3 months before I had kids 4 and 5 in 5 years.
Yep.
And so I've always tried to have a little bit of a balance. I think, I was lucky in that I caught a market wave. I've been fortunate in that I've had a lot of good people that I've hired all along the way. But in all of this, I've never been the 60-hour plus guy. And I respect the heck out of people that are. In the first company, when I was the COO and we were growing that, when I was younger, had younger kids, et cetera, I would consistently do the 60-hour weeks then. But ever since I became an entrepreneur, I have never done that. That's never been a part of my journey.
I like it. So toss it over to you, Ryan. Then we're going to move on to see what changes from 500,000 to $1 million. Then we're going to do 1 to 3. But so around this phase here, is this kind of represent where you were? And then were you were you enjoying this phase like Jason was? Were you getting high energy, or was it draining your energy, this phase?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think my favorite part of the business has always been the people.
Yep.
So similar to Jason, like I do resonate with, I think, getting that reward piece of like meeting somebody, they're in the bad situation, and you truly see the benefit that you put in there, whether it's getting them out, getting them into something bigger, nicer, whatever. So I definitely liked that aspect of it. I think for me, like if I'm being blunt, even in current companies, my role really is the marketer.
Yep.
I'm very much like your creative, let me build stuff and play with it person, not your, okay, map out the org chart guy.
Yep.
So I think where I struggled in that early phase was like, what do I do? What should I do? Right. So I think I put in a lot of hours that didn't need to get put in, that didn't necessarily move things forward. I think where I started having a lot more fun was at the next level as my acquisitions manager kind of became, or my lead manager kind of became my acquisitions manager.
Gotcha. Dude, so popping back up here, and I'm going to keep taking people back to the drip matrix because this is key, y'all, because your org chart's going to look different than Ryan's or different than Jason's because you have different things that give you energy that you like. So for you, do you get a lot of energy from the sales side of it? Or is that something that's like, because you love the marketing, but you wanted to get an acquisition manager in there?
Bro, it's like gambling for me. I don't gamble, but I do in my business of like, if I can come up with something, test it, and then monetize it, like that for me is like chef's kiss. Nice. Cool. Like that's my favorite.
I love it, man. So for you, that production mode is exactly that. It's like, how can we put Ryan in a spot where he's looking for opportunities? He's able to have the flexibility to go see what's new, dive in, test stuff, probably get your hands dirty and get back to that marketing thing, test some things. But man, as soon as possible, I'm going to replace myself in those because I don't want to run it. And then I'm going to go over here and go do that thing again and find the next opportunity. And that's the beauty, guys. Find what you love, and then you can build the business that fits you. So for sake of time, I'm going to bounce down here. It sounds like acquisition manager didn't really happen until later. Was that more like 500,000 to $1 million, or was that $1 million plus when acquisition manager became a focus?
I think it was 500 to $1 million for me, and that was because the lead manager role. So how our business effectively runs, like marketing goes out, Facebook ads, pay-per-click, SEO, direct mail, all of our Carrot sites printed on all of that, all funnels into Call Porter as the initial kind of touch that then hits our CRM.
Yep.
So my like lead manager piece, I'm a big believer in not having your closers talk to front end stuff. Like the best way to burn out a qualified salesperson is to have them talk to the take me off the list, go burn in hell-esque calls.
Yeah.
So my lead manager was always kind of like, they would tee me up on the appointments.
Gotcha.
When we got to that 500 to $1 million, it became, they were still doing that, but they'd take some appointments and so would I, because there were days that we'd be meeting with like 8 people.
Yep.
And I think that for me was where it got really fun, because it was like literally me and Noah, who's still one of my best friends, literally just like shooting the breeze, going, running appointments, coming back, competing. I mean, it was very like fun in getting to meet with people, seeing the service side of stuff, but it was still at the level that it was just kind of like us hanging out at the end of the day.
Yep. Dude, that's good, man. I like it. So you were sharing some of that role in acquisition manager, but I think the key thing here is oftentimes you're still doing some level of acquisitions. You just can't do it all now. And nor do you want to do it all. You don't want to have to be the person who no one's going to take that call or appointment unless I'm there. But did both of you guys still take appointments at that time because you wanted to in that time?
Wanted and had to. Like we just had more opportunities than people. So
yeah. Cool. So help tackle the volume of opportunities. Was there anything else that was added between 500,000 and $1 million? If not,
for me, I think it was more like some advisory roles.
Yep.
like starting to get ahead of my taxes instead of it just
There you
being
go.
this looming what's going to happen to me in October thing.
Yep.
So it was like finding the CPA, finding the attorney. So that was where I got a little bit more like built the team out with outside advisors a bit more. And like, you know, I got really close with the owner of the title company and got to learn like how a lot of that stuff works. So staff wise, no, like
Yep.
consultants, yes.
Cool. Perfect. Jason, any difference there?
So I added in that phase the acquisition manager, obviously replaced the lead manager. I added a dispo and project manager, and Ryan brought up the person I forgot, an awesome bookkeeper who's still with us today. That I think a lot of people are way too late for hiring and bringing on. I've seen a lot of businesses really struggle due to not actually knowing their financial numbers. I meet with her in 2 hours to go over all of the Utah company numbers.
Cool. Cool. So I'm going to put these down here because it sounds like these ones are probably like optional based on what you're doing. If you're flipping, you need a project manager, and you need dispo, of course, for either one there. So I'm going to draw something there where it's like, hey, if you're flipping, you got to have some level of this, and you're probably not going to be want to run around doing properties. And at this point, unless you love dispo, you're probably going to want to have someone help with dispo there. So I'm going to put those as probably optional depending on your strategy. So it looks like this, y'all. And I'm going to recap and we're going to dive into the rest of it. Basically 300,000 to 500,000. It's you offload the things up here that are delegate in that delegate bucket, things that drain your energy and don't really make a whole lot of money for the company, into an EA or a VA. You take and then you add a lead manager. So you're out and able now to do more of the work that you do best. That lead manager has the potential to grow into an acquisitions manager, but they're probably running and doing a bunch of different things. Like you said, Jason, taking pictures of properties. They might be doing cold calling, a whole bunch of things. And then as you grow past 500,000 to $1 million, you might now not need to add an actual acquisitions manager or bring that lead manager up into that role. And then you start to really add your advisors. So you know what the heck you're doing in your business and you're not just going astray, because now it's some real money. Now it's not just a little bit here and there. And then you get an opportunity to say, you know, am I going to add dispo or am I going to do that myself? And if I'm flipping, do I need a project manager? Does that pretty well represent up to $1 million?
Yeah.
Sweet. I like it, guys. Pop in the comments box. If you guys are enjoying this style, let me know if this is making sense for you. We're going to go 1 to 3 now. And this is where probably most people are between 300,000 and 3 million here. There might be some. Pop in the comments box if anyone's over 3 million. Let me know. I know in our Epic program has a bunch of people in 1 million to almost 10 million in revenue right now. And so we've been working with them on org charts, and some have 30 plus employees, which is crazy, in a wholesaling business, not even flipping. So we're going to focus a lot here. So you've got the CEO, which at this point, is this still you guys at 1 to 3, or did you guys start to bring someone else in? Yes. Okay.
Still me.
You.
So my AM became my business partner.
Oh, cool.
And like we're not very job. Yeah, it was kind of like by design. I was in Indianapolis for my wife's grad school. I knew I was leaving, so it was like, what's the plan here? Like there's a clock that's ticking. So he really earned that. So we're now co-owners in that company. I would say he probably acts more as the CEO, and I act more as like marketing director on like the systems side of stuff.
Cool. I like it. So around this time, you found somebody who could be the yin to your yang and who could run more of the business. Jason, when did you start to find that person for you guys? And what is that for you?
So the one thing I will say that there was 2 things that I was too late to doing that I would advise people to do differently. One, I was too late to a second acquisition manager, and I was too late to a second of dispositions. There's an incredible power in competing. When everything comes to you, it's very easy to get complacent. It's very easy to get fat. And I mean, my business for a long time went up and down with the mental, emotional state of my acquisition manager. When he was feeling it, when he was on, we were making money hand over fist. When he was down for whatever reason or unmotivated, it didn't matter how much marketing we did. He wasn't getting anything closed. So evening that out across 2 acquisition managers, I would have done that much closer to the $1 million rather than closer to the 3, which is what I did. I was probably more like 2 when I got a second acquisition manager, and I would have done that at closer to the 1. I also, I'm one of the weird, unique ones that can visionary and integrate. And I think that's a blessing and a curse. The curse was that I kept, because I kept doing those things too long.
Yep.
I would have brought the COO in sooner.
Okay.
So I definitely sit in the CEO seat now, and I have the COO, which actually similar for me. My COO was a promoted acquisition manager, which was luck. The fact that I happened to have an acquisition manager who could do the COO seat is awesome. Now, that's also he can do COO well, because COO is as much sales manager as it is COO in a wholesale company, because it is running a sales company. He would have a harder time being COO of Investor Machine, because Investor Machine is very operations heavy.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So we're gonna wrap at the 1 to 3 million range just for sake of time. But let's kind of fill this out a little bit more. So you've got the CEO, which at this point is still you guys, and then you've got your partner kind of there, and maybe they're not right next to you, maybe they're sitting underneath you in some way, shape, or form. But whatever it is, it's the yin or yang. So for you, Ryan, did you say that you put a CEO in at that spot? I can't remember. And you were the
So Noah does most of our like in the field stuff at this point.
Yeah.
I'm still very much in the visionary role. I'm not your ops guy, but we're also not super title heavy. But yeah, I mean, we pretty much acted as equals, and then just comp and ownership structure changed as the business grew, and I ended up relocating.
I like it. So essentially it's the operator, whatever the role it's called. It's, hey, I need someone to take over the stuff I don't want to do now. And it sounds like both of you guys had an opportunity to have an acquisitions manager start to learn more of that. So that's a key right there, y'all. Take that away. Like they said earlier, the acquisitions manager role is key. That's why it's key, because it has a potential to grow into much bigger in the company and start to take you off of it, because they then know how to do the business, which is really cool.
I was always thinking about the bench, right? And where I was going and who was going to be there. There were some books that really helped me a lot with this as I was growing this. Actually, funny enough, Gary Keller's The Millionaire Real Estate Agent helped me a ton. The way he goes from first level to second level, my goal the whole time was I wanted to have a 7th level company, but instead of calling them, whatever they call them, it's been a long time since I've read the book, agents that go do listing appointments, it was acquisition managers instead. The E-Myth Revisited also helped me a lot in building out that specific structure too. And actually, the founder of InvestorFuse did some awesome, which you now own as well, did some awesome trainings on that as well.
Yep. No, there's some really good ones on there, man. Very good. So let me recap this. You got CEO, you got an operator at this point. You're over $1 million. You need to find the yin or yang. You've got your EA/VA still at that point, I'm assuming, or did that change? Yeah.
Still do.
You've got a couple acquisition managers at that point. Is there anything that I'm missing here? Do you still have a lead manager, or is that something that advanced? Yeah.
Still have
still have a lead manager. So I was one of the people that Jason referred to of didn't get their books done until it became a problem. So we ended up bringing in like an admin at that level that assisted with things like, actually tracking P&Ls and making sure expenses were tied to jobs. And she also assisted with things like transaction coordinating kind of stuff. So again, kind of somebody wearing maybe a couple hats. Mm-hmm. She's still with us today, but really did a lot of our like paperwork, accounts receivable, payable, basically teed up stuff for the CPA.
Cool. I like it. So that one does kind of step more like you're saying, it's the admin. So did you still have like a VA helping with a lot of the more rando stuff as well?
Yep. Yeah. We literally just moved her from that company to one of our other companies yesterday. So she's been with me now since 2016.
Excellent. So that's good there. I'll reorganize this here in a bit. We'll bring this ship home. So last question for you guys here that I can think of. So now that you've got this operator, how many of these people reported to you guys, or how many report to you now?
One thing that I did a little bit poorly, I think it's Gary Keller that says you should never have more than 5 people reporting to you. Up until the COO, everybody reported to me. Every
Yep.
VA, every acquisition manager, I mean, my org chart looked like one down to like just a wide 2-level org chart, basically. Now it's so you have me, the COO, and then the office manager, and then all the VAs, and then
Cool.
the 2 acquisition managers, and then the dispo. And there's a little bit more of an actual chart. But previous to the COO, it was a 2-level chart. Jason, everybody else.
Yep. Perfect. Cool. So everyone else reports over here. I'll reorganize that a bit. But basically, you've got your operator and you've got your admin or executive assistant. Did I hear that right? They're pretty much the only ones reporting to you at that point. Cool. That's ideal at that point there. Perfect. Cool. And the rest go like this, guys. So this is where you start to buy that time back. Okay. This is where you start to buy that time back. It's not organized well, but does this kind of represent the 1 to 3 right around that range? You've got your operator, you've got an administrator or the executive assistant. We did big sessions on this today. You've got your operator really running the daily operations with your lead manager, your 2 acquisitions managers probably. And there's some level of VA assistance depending on the type of marketing you guys do. And then of course, there's all of this as well with the advisors and stuff. So you've got dispo, so over here somewhere, likely. And then if you're doing flips, you've got your PM if you have flips. Okay, cool. So that org kind of looks like that. What were the big, let's just say one thing, once you cross over 3 or right around the 3, what big change happened, if any, from this structure here?
So for us, that was more on the rental end.
Okay.
So we ended up with like leasing agents and in-house like handyman construction type stuff.
Yep.
So
cool.
kind of brought some of those pieces that outsourcing wasn't reliable to in-house. That was when we added those.
Cool. So you got your leasing agents. And what was the other one you mentioned? Leasing agent?
Like in-house construction, like handyman type stuff. We still had like specialist subs, for things like foundations and roofing, but we could handle painting, small repairs, swapping appliances, that kind of stuff.
Heck yeah, that's perfect. So I'm gonna land this puppy here, guys. So in our Epic program, the conversations I've been having with our clients, 100% of them want to build the wholesaling flipping business, and then they want to build up their rentals, and they want to have to start to swap the hamster wheel income for evergreen income. And so what Ryan had mentioned there is key, because as you're growing it, you're not going to want to manage all those rental properties, and you might have enough scale at that point that it makes sense to have someone in-house rather than outsourcing. You could outsource it, but once you get scale, it becomes far more expensive to outsource it, and you can just really bring that internal. So guys, I know we blew through this, and what we can do is we can find some way to get everyone this if we want to, if you guys want to see it. But hopefully this gives you kind of a picture that it's very, very approachable, right? In that 300,000 to 500,000, it's you and a couple people, y'all, and you can add them as you go. And this one's a very low cost person. This one's not very high cost person. And you're just really, really working hard, and you're continually buying back the time and the things that drain your energy. You focus on a really good acquisitions manager, because that's going to be a person that's going to be an unlock for you. Everyone reports to you at that point. Once you start to cross over the million or get closer, you might add another acquisitions manager or turn that lead manager into an acquisitions manager. Start to get your advisors in place from 300,000 or from 500,000 to $1 million. Depending on your business strategy and what you like to do, potentially add dispo and project management. But then once you get over 3 or once you get over 1, start to look for that operator. And like Ryan was saying, titles don't matter. I maybe wouldn't call him a COO at 1 million. Maybe that's a director of operations or something like that they could grow into. But then you've got your operator and your EA reporting to you. You get to do more of the things you love to do. That operator essentially runs the business with a bench of lead manager, a couple acquisitions managers. You've got your VA, and then depending on your business model, you have these other things down here. And as you grow, you're going to start to look at what you need to do with your rental properties, and then you'll pretty much just keep on adding more of these people as your volume grows. You just look at what the biggest issues are, and you add more people. And then once you get, let's say you get 4 to 5 acquisitions managers, you're probably going to, if you got giant, right? Or whatever, if you got 4 to 5 of one role, you probably need a manager or a team lead in that spot. And you pick your best person, elevate them up to that team lead role if they want to. And that person then would report to that. And then those people would report to your team lead. But that's only if you really start to scale. So I blew through this, guys. Thank you for letting me kind of absorb from your brains and start to doodle on the iPad. We're at time. I thank you guys massively, and just the value that you add, not only here, but elsewhere.